So hello everybody, this is Thanos Belalidis from Σύμπραξις team in English today, which is something that I haven't done for quite a while. Within the frame of the LIFE ASTI project, one of the projects that Σύμπραξις team is involved with, and I'm with distinguished guests, good friends from the LIFE ASTI project. To start with Francesca De Donato. Let me read carefully the name of the organization so that I don't insult Francesca, which is Department of Epidemiology, Lazio Regional Health Service. Is this correct, Francesca?
That's perfect.
And
everyone.
Francesca is with us all the way from Rome at the moment, correct?
Yes, I'm in Rome, in Italy, correct.
Excellent. And Gianpedro Casasanta is also connected. Gianpedro is from ISAC, the Institute of Atmospheric and Climate Sciences in Rome as well?
Yeah, in Rome as well.
Okay, excellent. Because time is running fast, and I'm very privileged and very happy to be within this frame of this group. I'm going to get within our subject immediately. We are a nice group of people that we like each other, and it's a very nice day, and we are going to talk about a very hard, challenging issue. To start with, I want to say that, as you know, Greece went through the SARS-CoV-2 issue as well, starting in March. Then at the middle of May, this was concluded to start with. The quarantine stopped, and the day after, we had the heat wave. It only took one day from the SARS-CoV situation to move to a heat wave with 40 degrees. To start with, if I may ask you both to explain to us, what is this issue of urban heat island? What does it mean in simple words? Anybody can start, and I will just post.
Okay, then I go ahead. Yeah, it's something actually very, very, very familiar, as everybody knows that during the day the cities get hotter than their surrounding, than the countryside. I mean, because cities are mostly concrete, asphalt, and so on, so materials that absorb solar radiation during the night and release it the day and release it during the night. So as a result, you expect a city to be hotter than the countryside. And this is what we call an urban heat island.
Okay.
And so it's a simple effect that can add up with other effects like heat waves, for instance.
Francesca, can you give us your own impression of the urban heat island effect to start with?
Yeah, well, coming from a more, let's say, public health background, the urban heat island, as Gianpietro mentioned, is an added, let's say, environmental exposure or risk when we have heat waves. So we're all, we know that during heat waves, temperatures can be very high, and people living in urban areas are exposed to an even greater risk, because obviously temperatures can get even higher due to the urban heat island effect. And the worst effect here is not only that we have higher diurnal temperatures in very compact urban centers and during the day, but also at night we don't have a relief, and we can't really sleep as well as you would do in the countryside, because heat accumulates and we don't have typical breezes or lowering of temperature. This is a risk for people who are exposed to the heat all day and all night, especially, not all the population is vulnerable and susceptible in terms of the health risks in the same way. Obviously, the elderly are more at risk, people with chronic disease, small children during the day, but also these added effects during heat waves, which are prolonged periods of high temperatures, have been shown to have a severe impact on the health of a local population. And this is a health issue, which within the LIFE ASTI project and in other projects that we've been managing has been a challenge in the last years. And then if you think of it in terms of future climate change, and the global warming effects that we are seeing, and the Mediterranean is one of the areas that has been identified as being most at risk, this becomes a serious problem, not only in terms of environmental policy and legislations linking to climate change, but also from a public health point of view, because people in cities and in urban environments and those that are more vulnerable will be a burden for the public health service, as well as being at risk for local populations and the people we care about, which is a problem, obviously.
Gianpedro, may I ask you what happens in underprivileged areas, in areas that are not so financially wealthy? And when I mean wealthy, I mean areas with less green parks, with less green spaces. What happens especially in these areas? Because, for example, in Athens, in the city center, we have areas with absolutely no green areas whatsoever. What happens with the urban heat island effect, Gianpedro, in these facilities, in these areas?
Yeah, okay. Despite being a simple phenomenon, the urban heat island is quite complex in terms of homogeneity. And so a city is a really variable environment, and it's made of different categories of areas, I mean. So those areas that are close to green area tends to warm, to get hotter less than the most urbanized areas, I mean. So depending on where you live, you get a different effect. And it's absolutely crucial to be able to characterize the urban environment with high spatial resolution. Because if you're living close to a river, and in Rome, Paris, in other cities, in many cities, this can happen. The river, the water mitigates the urban heat island. But if you living in a banlieue, for instance, and everything around you is asphalt and concrete, then you have no chance, and the temperature can get as high as 6 degrees more than the usual, more than the background, more than the countryside temperature.
So, Francesca, if I understand correctly from what Gianpedro is discussing, let's say I'm an Athenian or somebody living in Rome. In simple words, if I am situated in an underprivileged part of my city, it simply means that there will be 6 degrees more heat in my neighborhood, and I would need to spend more money to ventilate my house. So not only I'm not financially stronger than other peers, other colleagues in the city, but I also need to spend more money for ventilation. Is this correct? Before you answer, my colleagues in my office are working a vacuum, so I will have to ask them to stop, and I'll be back with you. So this is 100% a live event, as we can tell.
Yeah, no doubt,
Okay, so while you've gone, I will answer the question partially. So what we know, obviously, is that deprived areas, within cities, not the whole city is not all the same, both in terms of construction, of access to services, to green space, and to the quality of the urban area. And so that also influences the whole, let's say, environmental aspect of a city, and we get environmental justice as much as we have, socio-economic and socio-financial, let's say, deprivation in cities. And obviously, these seem to go together. So, the poorer areas of the cities are the ones with less facilities, with poorer quality housing, with less services like green areas, and they can also be the warmest ones. And as you say, they have less access to financial, let's say, responses. And then they can be in further worse conditions as well. So this is another issue which is very important when we're thinking of response measures from public health terms, or mitigation measures when we're looking at improving our cities to reduce the urban heat island effect and the exposures to heat that need to be taken into account. The social and environmental inequality within a city. Obviously, we can't rebuild the whole city. The cities as they are, especially in Europe, we have historical cities with long historical city centers with old buildings, which obviously sometimes are much better than the modern ones in terms of cooling and quality of the actual buildings. And these need to be taken into account. So a crucial aspect as well is not the health of the population, but also the quality of the city and how this can be improved. And it's sort of a win-win situation if you think of it. If we improve the city and the quality of the environment that we live in, we also, mitigate the urban heat island effect, but also other exposures like air pollution, air quality, access to green areas, which also improves living quality and quality of life. So having access to green areas improves, people going to doing sporting activities, reduces obesity, access to services, also, reduces traffic-related exposure and then health effects related to that.
You once told me that there is a difference in life expectancy.
Yeah.
Between different areas, I mean. Is that true?
Yeah, it is true. I mean, it's very different, obviously, throughout Europe and European cities or countries. The economic differences are, or let's say the economic divide in terms of health effects and life expectancy can be different, not only between, the north and the south of Italy and areas which are richer compared to poor areas, but also within cities as well. There can be differences in life expectancy. And if you think of the potential economic recession that we will be living after the COVID event now, this is another crucial aspect that has to be taken into account.
Mm-hmm. So this always, surprise me. If you live in the wrong part, in the wrong area of the city, your life is simply shorter, and it's something that is surprising to me. It surprised me.
And it's completely shocking, Gianpedro, that if I live in a poor area of the city, I have a temperature which is higher than 6 degrees in the Athenian environment. It can be even more extended than this. And not only this, I have to spend more money for the ventilation and the cooling of my house. So there is a very strong inequality, which I believe is not discussed as much as possible during the discussion of the urban heat island. But Francesca also mentioned the COVID issue. Can I please ask you both to comment on whether the COVID-19 issue is related with the urban heat island effect?
You first?
I wouldn't say it's linked, no. I would say that I think we don't know enough of that to say anything of the relationship between how temperatures or other environmental parameters can influence the transmission or the prevalence or incidence of COVID. What we could say, I think now there is some relevant evidence that obviously the people that are more susceptible to heat are also the ones that have been most affected to COVID. And how we respond, we have to adapt how we respond and how the response measures in place during heat waves have to react considering the COVID situation. That's something that is for sure. If you think of social distancing, access to social care, healthcare, etc. Obviously, these need to be taken into account when we're planning, as we are living now, the summer in Europe, and we have to, implement heat prevention plans, specific activities, surveillance of those most at risk. And it is obviously different. And then we have to think of, personal protective devices and stuff, and wearing masks in the heat or other protection equipment, which isn't really doesn't really go with heat. You wouldn't want to wear it, right? But you have to because it's important. So we have to still make sure and promote these measures and make sure that they're still carried out in summer, that the wrong messages don't go out in terms of, it's hot, there's no more risk. No, the risk is still there. And we still have to make sure that we protect those that are more at risk during heat wave events and carry out the same measures. So that is something we definitely need to do. And there's been a lot of promotion of these messages from, institutions like WHO, national health ministries. And I think it's a really important aspect that we need to consider. There's been a lot of, everything is very COVID related now. It's the only thing anyone is interested in. But as you said, you have the COVID emergency in Greece, like we had in most of Europe, even harder. And then the next week there was a heat wave, and we've sort of been living the same thing. So they still happen, and we have to be prepared and, you know, make sure that the same measures are put in place, and we can react to both and not do anything just because there's a COVID outbreak. And there's risk for both, and they are affecting a lot of the same people. So we have to be super, super alert and prepared.
Gianpedro?
Yeah, it didn't change anything, not really. As the forcing, I mean, the element that is the element that is forcing our cities, our system. The key element here is the sun itself. So yeah, and it's not changing anything. I mean, from a physical point of view. Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of processes that are going on. I mean, it doesn't change anything because what matters here is the sun, and the sun is always the same. Yeah, in the short period at least. I mean, so in this case, you know, lockdown, whether we are or not, you know, lockdown, we still have the same sun, and so we still have the same insulation, and the city is getting warmer as always. So nothing changes. It's not something that is connected to how we live, but it's something that is connecting to where we live and with what we made. So with what kind of city or cities we built. Mm-hmm. So it's more about architecture and urbanization that about anything else.
Okay, and Gianpedro, as we speak, can you please comment about the LIFE ASTI project and how it can be of assistance within the frame of the urban heat island situation?
What we are doing is exactly what we need. Yeah, I'm being probably a little bit bold here, but I'm really fond of LIFE ASTI, so I'm simply being honest from my point of view. So we are trying to get a picture of a couple of cities, namely Rome and Thessaloniki. Yeah, Rome and Thessaloniki. Yeah, a picture, a high spatial resolution, spatial and temporal resolution picture of those cities. Mm-hmm. So it's like you get a photo of the city every 10 minutes, and the pixel you are looking at are something like a few kilometers far from each other. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time ever in Rome. Yeah, I don't know about Thessaloniki, but this is the first time ever in Rome that we are able to cover all the city square by square, I mean block by block, with WMO compliant sensor that are able to provide reliable measurement, reliable temperature and other meteorological parameters. Temporal measurements and other parameters that can affect the urban heat island, like, for instance, wind. In Rome, we are quite close to the sea. Thessaloniki is even closer than Rome to the sea. So there are some mesoscale phenomena that can affect positively, I mean, in this case, affect the urban heat island like sea breeze, for instance. Mm-hmm.
And why is this data collection useful? What do we plan to accomplish?
Yeah,
with the LIFE ASTI project? Yeah,
we plan to first we plan to characterize the city square by square, I mean block by block. Mm-hmm. So we were able, with a bit of luck maybe, we were able to characterize what Francesca was saying before. So the difference between rich and poor, for instance. And with rich and poor, I mean between parts of the city that are close to green areas or water bodies and so on, and other parts of the cities that are for instance, heavily urbanized. So this is gonna be a map of the city, of the city temperature, with a spatial resolution of a few kilometers. And we add up a forecast model that is able to forecast the temperature over those parts of the city for 3 days in advance. I mean, so from one side we get a real picture. That is something that you don't get anywhere. You cannot get it by satellite measurements, for instance, because in that case you don't have the right time resolution, the right temporal resolution. Satellite is not gonna pass over the city as often as needed. So you can't do that by satellite. You do it by real in situ measurements, and you picture what you have today, and you forecast what you are gonna have in the next 3 days.
Do you understand correctly that we can save lives in this respect if we can have a 3-day forecast of a heat wave, for example?
Yeah, Francesca, that's for you.
Definitely one of the key components, let's say, of a heat prevention plan that are in place in most of Europe nowadays, after, if you recall the 2003 very dramatic heat wave, what countries have done is to introduce heat adaptation plans or heat warning plans. And these obviously have one of the key components that have been identified are alert and warning systems, because if you inform the people of when the risk conditions are going to occur, and you inform them of who is most at risk and what they should do and how they should change, their daily behavior, or simple measures that can protect you, this is already has been shown to be an important added value. So the idea is obviously that we save lives. That's the ultimate goal, I would say. And the added value of this project is not only that warning systems are in place in most areas, but as Gianpietro was saying, forecasts don't usually go into that spatial scale, and we can't really tell the differences within cities. So we give a warning for the whole of Athens or the whole of Berlin or Paris, and we don't really know the differences within the city. So the idea of the LIFE ASTI project is to go into the cities as well and say which areas are the hottest areas, which are the ones most at risk. And because we know how, as we were saying before, where vulnerability in terms of there are, areas that are more deprived, areas with a higher proportion of elderly people, or where hospitals are located, or nursing homes, which are, areas where more people at risk are, we can really target and let's say modulate the risk and give further indications into who then goes and does, emergency work or prevention during the summer, or health services or social care workers that, are on the field. They will actually know where the areas at most at risk are, not only in terms of the thermal characteristics within the city, but also because, there are hotspots of vulnerability because of the people and the characteristics that are there. And as if you think of it, as more we progress, and as we've seen also with this COVID outbreak, is that, resources are limited in terms of especially health services, have been limited, have been restricted over the years as well. So the amount of money and the people that can actually work on this are very limited. This is, in fairness, we can say this, I think. And so giving them an idea of where to really focus the most work and address the most vulnerable, susceptible people, and with resources looking within an area, within a big city, especially like large cities like Rome. There's over nearly 3 million inhabitants in Rome. It's a very extent area, or London or Paris or other big cities. I think it's an important added value that we can really, really provide. And as Gianpietro was saying, there are different measures, and there have been different warning systems that have been produced looking at these different areas, but having an actual proper mapping with observed data is really important, because it makes everything more, gives it an added value. We've checked it, we've seen it's like that, and it really does give an added value, and it improves the forecast, because if you have observed data that you input into a forecast model, it improves the performance of the model. And that is really what we're aiming for and what we need from a public health point of view. We need accurate forecasts to then plan our activities.
Okay, and Francesca, can the LIFE ASTI significantly contribute to more accurate data collection and analysis?
Yes, that's the goal of the project. So I really do think that's where we're heading, and where we are already seeing some important benefits of the forecasts that are running this year operationally. Last year they were tested both in Thessaloniki and in Rome. It's a start. The idea is that then the same methodology can be extended to other areas, other cities. And it's the whole network of activities that goes around that. It's not only producing really good forecasts and accurate monitoring networks. It's also then using that data to provide a whole series of services, which I think is really the added value of our project, in which we have different stakeholders that come together. We have, municipality and social services and civil protection, and us from the health service departments, as well as, researchers and people who actually develop the models and have the best uptake on this side as well. So it's having different aspects coming together with the communication side, which is vital. We could have the best model ever. If it doesn't go anywhere, no one is going to know about it. So that's a crucial aspect that I think is also addressed in the project, which is really important.
One critical question to both of you, and I'm sure you can give me a definite answer on this respect. Will there be a heat wave in Greece or Italy this summer? Please
100% sure. Yeah, we don't know when, but we are going to have a heat wave, at least one.
Yeah, well, you've already had one, so we can answer fully that in Greece that's going to happen, because it's happened. So that counts. That's cheating. We've had a very warm last week in Italy, especially in the north and in the center of Italy. It wasn't a very long heat wave, but it was an interesting start to a late summer. But the summer is long and they get longer. So with climate change, before, let's say, we were out of summer by August, now until mid-September, we can still expect a heat wave. So we still have a while to go.
A more serious answer from my side too. Let's say that with climate change, heat waves are expected to increase in both number, frequency, and intensity.
Mm-hmm.
So the next year we are gonna expect stronger and more consistent heat waves all around Europe, at least. All around Europe. Yeah, I talk about Europe as LIFE is a European project, but I could say similar thing for the rest of the world, of course. So our city are gonna be warmer than ever in the next decades, and we absolutely need a way to lower down the temperature. So a way to mitigate this effect. And
the risk is extended, right? So it's not only, in Southern Europe, let's say we're used to heat waves. They might be more intense, they might be more, and we'll still have impacts. But in a way, even cities are constructed to take into account heat to some extent. If you think of more Northern European areas that are not acclimatized to heat, houses aren't even built to think of heat waves and heat, So this is something that will provide an even greater risk that, compared to other areas that will be less affected. And we've already been seeing these effects. If you think of the 2003 heat wave in France or in the UK or in Scandinavia, temperatures have been rising consistently, and they are not adapted and they're not used to it. Not only the population isn't adapted, but the cities and the infrastructures aren't prepared, for heat waves. And even if we see climate change as a slow process, it isn't as slow, and we really need to think of how to deal with it now, apart from mitigate the effects potentially.
No, it is not, because this increase in frequency and intensity has already been so it's something that we are watching, that we can see right now, and we expect it expected to be more dangerous in the near future.
And we are talking about human lives here, about our being.
That's the main issue. I mean, the main issue for us from a public health point of view, definitely, but it's also affecting the environment, which is important to us for a series of reasons. It's also affecting the quality of, of water, of, so many other things that are important to human health in an indirect way. So it's not only heat waves that are a direct effect of climate change, it's all the indirect effects related to it, which will have a knock-on effect on populations as well, which we really need to take into consideration.
And then it's also about its feedback on pollution, for instance. Mm-hmm. That's another problem. Energy consumption. Of course, if your city is warmer, you need more energy to cool down your buildings, your environment, and that means more energy consumption. So, of course, when you touch city, when there is something that affects an entire city, there are also a lot of side effects that you got to take into consideration. So it's about people, first place, no doubt about that. This is about people's lives, of course, but it's also about pollution. That is something else that can affect people's life as well, and it's also about money. As you said before, Thanos, this is also about money because it's also about energy consumption and spending more for your houses, or more generally to keep low the temperature of your block of your city. And
what are the protection measures for our elderly and the vulnerable during a heat wave and during this effect in a specific part of the city? What can people do to protect themselves in the most possible way?
Well, firstly, I mean, the obvious thing is not to go out in the hottest hours of the day. Stay cool, and it doesn't mean putting air conditioning really to low levels. That is not the most sensible thing to do. It should be moderated. Just putting down the blinds or pulling curtains and having a change of air between windows is a good thing as well. Stay cool, so don't wear too much clothing. Very natural fibers or light clothing. Refresh yourself with water as well. Don't necessarily stand in front of a fan, because even if you get dehydrated, that isn't a good thing either. You have to drink a lot of water, a lot of fluids. Obviously non-alcoholic or caffeine drinks is preferable because you need to stay hydrated, and mostly elderly people are not aware of the fact that they are dehydrated, or they don't have a sense of thirst like small children, that they don't regulate themselves, so they need to be looked after and cared for. People that also take medication need to drink a lot and need to be careful with extreme heat and sweating. And there are, several measures and things that you could do. So, don't go out, drink often. If you don't feel very well, you should seek medical attention. Most cities and countries have helplines that are activated during heat waves or during summer. Call your GP, contact even a friend, relatives if you need help, someone who can go out and do your shopping and things like that. And have always a network of people that can help you where possible, obviously. And that those are simple, and look out for other people who you might think are at risk, not only small children and maybe your grandparents or the elderly, but other people that might be a risk that you know of within cities. And cities, during summer, especially in Italy or in south of Europe, people go on vacation. And so the elderly or the most deprived are left alone, and the assistance is less. So we always need to keep an eye on them and make sure that people aren't too isolated, and look out for other people and contact social services or services that are in place. In Italy, for example, we have a lot of the work has been done to have an active surveillance of those most at risk. So identify them through, national registries, health registries, through GPs, they call the people most at risk, or social services go and visit them and take stuff to them and stuff like that. So that is something that is really helpful, and creates a context of care and watch on other people.
Mm-hmm. And Gianpedro, what about protecting ourselves in the COVID era? How the heck can we do this? Remain safe with masks on our face and visors on our foreheads. What do you think, Gianpedro? Is this really physically possible with 42 degrees in Rome or Salonika or in Athens? Can one have a mask or a visor and stay in controlled areas within the frame of temperature?
We will see, but it's going to be quite hard, because where the temperature is more than 40, you sweat a lot, for instance. So the sweat covers your mask. You can't breathe so it's going to be quite hard. But on the other hand, it will be easier to keep the social distance. I mean, because this is a reason why one of the reasons why normal flu, I mean, doesn't spread on summer. Mm-hmm. Because the people keep those social distances that they are less willing to maintain during winter. Mm-hmm. So we are going to be farther than in winter, of course, but we are also going to be less willing to wear personal protections.
Yeah, but I think it should be stressed that we should follow the procedures that have been indicated at national level on how to deal with COVID, even if it's hot, even if you don't want to wear a mask, even if it's not because it's for your own safety and it's
of course. No, I totally agree.
So totally that's the clue thing.
I'm worried about that.
Yeah, but I think there is a risk of everyone going to the seaside and sort of forgetting that there is a COVID pandemic around. And we don't want that. And people are also going to be traveling more from one area to the other to some extent. So I think it's important that when social distancing, as you say, cannot be done, we do still follow the procedures and remember the risks, and always wash your hands, cough in your arm or sneeze and not in someone's face. and there are some simple measures that I think most of Europe now has been, or around the world, everyone is sort of abiding to and has been good in following. And I think we should keep it up, even if it seems that in summer things are going to go down. But there is no real evidence that, during summer and during a heat wave, you cannot have COVID, you can't get COVID. That isn't true. So we still have to be very careful and make sure that, we follow all the procedures that we can and we should do and that are in place. And I think it's important.
I was talking about normal flu, Francesca. I mean, I was talking about the normal flu, the flu that we have all the year.
Yeah, but this, it isn't a normal flu.
No,
and it's not. And again, it's not true that there isn't any flu going around in summer. There still is. It's limited. And so
it's limited.
In the emergency of things and in the, the situation is quite particular.
I was merely noticing that it's limited also because people stay less closer.
Yeah, that's true.
Less close to each other. I mean, So if you are keeping social distance just because the city temperature is absolutely unbearable, then it's okay. It works as well. I mean, of course, it's something that is related to COVID, but it's not, of course, about COVID as simply because we don't have any proof that COVID is not gonna survive summer. Of course, it will probably do. Actually, it will probably.
Yeah, I think we can say that it will. Yeah, because there are several warm places that have been having COVID for a long time now.
Well, I was not saying something like that. I was not.
No, I know. I'm saying, it's.
I was just saying that if people stay less close because it's summer, then it's an advantage.
That's true, but yeah, again, as you think of, going to the beaches or hanging out outside, going to restaurants, it still creates some sort of mass gathering that we shouldn't be allowed or should not be doing. So I think we should still, always be aware, and because especially for those people that are most at risk, because then we might be okay. Young people have a lower risk of complications. But still, I think we should still be.
Yeah, some young people take care of their parents, for instance.
Yeah.
That are not so young people.
Exactly.
So we are the real danger, Francesca. Actually, we are the people. Yeah, we are the people that can infect the others. Our age, 20-50.
It's the same in Greece, by the way. Not enough people take care of the protection measures, and it's pretty obvious on the streets as well that people got too emotionally stressed, probably, and now they are revolting too much basic measures like keeping their distances, and not just in wearing masks, but people hug each other and they shake hands, and it's obviously quite silly. But since we are already together for about 45 minutes, I have one final critical question to both of you. You are Italians, I'm Greek. This is a project with partners from both countries. So the critical question is, you live in an amazing country. Where are you going for your vacation on the forthcoming month? Please share with us and make us jealous, even though we are quite happy and proud of the Greek islands and the Greek landscape, but please tell us where you are going in Italy for your vacation.
Not yet, I haven't yet planned it. Can you believe it?
What a Greek thing to do. This is how we do it in Greece as well. So you haven't planned your vacation yet. That's fantastic. Francesca,
later.
You have planned your vacation.
Yes, I have. I changed my vacations because originally I was supposed to be going to the US in Florida, and as you can imagine, it's not the best time to go there now, unfortunately. So hopefully they will come out of it very soon. That's what we hope for everyone, really. But obviously we're staying in Italy. There's not much moving around, and I'm going to the mountains in Abruzzo, which is in the Apennines in the center of Italy, and hopefully, to keep social distancing. And then after that to Puglia, where they have had very few cases.
Next door, She is basically going next door.
Yeah. And then, a bit of seaside in the south of Italy, in Puglia.
Gianpedro, you have no idea where you're going yourself?
Francesca's not Italian, you see. She planned everything.
Yeah, that's my other half.
She even has a plan B. She was supposed to go to Florida. She cannot. She already has plan B.
Have you been in Florida, Francesca, before?
Yes, I have. It's very humid.
I was going to say you are not going to miss much except the Epcot Center and Disneyland. So I can tell who wants to go to Florida. Okay.
No,
guys.
I was going to go for work. We had a conference. Really? Obviously, with COVID, it's been cancelled. So, but that's how it is.
I think that Abruzzo sounds much better than Florida, even though Florida, it has an amazing landscape and protected areas and parks and stuff. I have driven all around it. Definitely, I'm not an Orlando fan, but I wish you both to have an excellent time. I really appreciate this discussion. I think we were quite straightforward about what this urban heat island effect is and the efforts of the LIFE ASTI project. And let's do this again in a few months in the future when we will have more data and outcomes. Okay?
With pleasure. With pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time, guys. So nice to see you. Take care. Have a great vacation.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.